Hello and welcome, and today I am going to be trying something that I've never tried before. I'm going to be doing a bit of sculpting, a bit of modelling, not the catwalk kind of modelling, because you don't want to see that. But I'm going to be using some air drying clay to have a go and see if I can make a little miniature Bob Ross, as you may have gathered from the title of the video. So without further ado, let's get cracking. Okay, so I'm starting off here just building a base and basic structure for the whole sculpture. So I'm using some garden mesh, using a cardboard template and cutting a small piece of garden mesh around it, folding it all around with some pliers, and then I'm going to cover it with some kitchen foil, and that's my basic base. Nice and simple. And there we go, one base. And now moving on to the armature for the sculpture. So I'm still using garden mesh here. You should use like a thick gauge wire or something like that, but I didn't have any to hand, so I just cut down some more garden mesh, used that as an armature, and yeah, it worked pretty well, as you can see. Just trying to get the basic shape of the pose and the body proportions together. And now what I'm doing is just coating the whole thing in a layer of kitchen roll, just to bulk it out a little bit, so we don't have to use quite so much clay on the actual model itself. And the clay that I'm going to be using is this from Sculpt. It's just an air drying clay. As you can see, I've got quite a lot of it to use, and the first thing I should have had to hand was a rolling pin, which I didn't have, which was a little bit annoying, so I had to make do. And yeah, so I've just started slapping it all on. This stage is just I was just wanting to get a layer of clay over the whole thing, just to get a basic rough shape and just to see how it looks with a layer of clay on it. So I haven't gone into this completely blind. I have looked at sculpting videos in the past, and I know some of the characteristics of air drying clay. Mainly the one you've got to look out for is the fact that because it dries in air, it's releasing all the water. It's basically all the water that's inside it is evaporating, and so therefore it shrinks and ends up cracking if you're not careful as it dries. This is something that I was not careful to avoid, and spent the rest of this project trying to fix, as you will see in the upcoming segments. Fun. Okay, so I've left it for a day or two to dry off, and as expected, yeah, it's cracked quite a lot. I mean, I'm sure anybody who's used air dry clay and was watching me slap all that on knew exactly what was going to happen. But that's okay. I mean, I expected it to crack. That's why I only kept it very rough and basic. I guess the next stage is going to be to tidy this all up and just start building up with much smaller layers, much thinner layers, and see how long this takes to actually build up to something more substantial. I'll be back when I've got something to show for it. Okay, so this is a little bit later. I've played around with this a bit off camera, and I've worked out a little technique here for actually using an old paintbrush, and make sure it is an old paintbrush, by the way, if you're going to try this. And I'm just using that to wet the surface first, most importantly, because then that gives the clay more adhesion. It gives it something, it's more likely to stick to the surface that you're putting it onto. But then also smoothing it out quite liberally with plenty of water to really get that wet clay into the cracks that are already there, but also to smooth out the edges as much as possible to thin them out, and so you get as thin and even a coat of clay as possible. And it seemed to work pretty well. you know, it's not solving all of the problems that I've already created with my initial laser clay, but I definitely felt like I was getting a smoother, cleaner finish towards the end of this process. And plus it just looks really satisfying to watch sped up. I didn't realise this at the time I was doing it, but God, that's satisfying. Right, here we are after quite a lot of sort of learning as I go, kind of bumbling along. We're at a point where well, if you have a look at it, obviously the main problem I'm having is the cracking, which is a major problem with air drying clay if you don't know what you're doing with it, which clearly I don't. I'm learning as I go. I've decided to pick up a few ways of avoiding the worst cracks, but what seems pretty obvious is that just layering over extra clay to kind of cover over the cracks, it isn't really going to work. It's just going to crack again. So I think I've got a plan for how to solve that before I paint it. It's probably a bit of a cheaty way of doing it, but who cares, eh? So for now, I think I'm going to actually start going into some of the details, put his face on, sort out his shirt, his belt, and whatever little details, and then get it ready for painting. Well, hello, cracky-eyed Joe. Yes, this little fellow is coming along. He's very cracked. I mean, there's not a lot I can do about this by this point. He's going to be cracked. But I have a plan, as always. Of course, I have a plan. I mean, the correct plan would be to, learn how to use this material properly, and then not have cracks in the first place. But that's not the way I roll. What I'm going to do is use some of this, some matte gel medium, acrylic paint medium, and this is very, very similar to PVA glue. In effect, is what it is. It's and it is going to have a very, it should dry clear, and it will give the whole thing just a bit of rigidity. It will get into all the cracks, stiffen everything up, and hopefully give it a really nice surface to paint onto, which will be the next step. So, leave this with me, and I'll see you once this guy's all covered in white goo. And there we have it, all the sculpting and modelling is done. Yeah, he's still a bit rough and ready, still a bit cracked, still a bit lumpy, but I like him. I mean, could he be better? Yes, almost certainly. But, it's not about the end result, it's about the process. And particularly with this, first time I'm using this medium, it's a learning process, isn't it? And it doesn't have to be perfect. But that gel medium that I added he's definitely a lot more rigid than he was before. So that's done the job, and it's definitely gone into a lot of these cracks. They still are visible, but I think once we get a layer of paint over the top, it should start to really look fairly smooth. I mean, it's not going to be perfect, but that's, like I said before, that's not the goal here. Perfection is not the goal. It's just about enjoying the process. So I've got, oh, sorry Bob. We've got some paints here. We've got some paint brushes, and we're going to stick them together and do some painting on this guy, and hopefully try and make him look like the man himself. We'll see how that goes. Let's see if we can make him look like the man himself. That's a good one. That's a good one. Nice one, pass Carrie. No. Spoiler alert. I failed to make him look anything like Bob Ross. More like Noel Edmonds than Bob Ross. But I still, as I've said, or as I will say, it was always about the process more rather than the end result with this. I did not expect to get a perfect result at all, and I really enjoyed this process of modelling and painting a little sculpture. So yeah, it doesn't look like Bob Ross, but hey, maybe next time. But for now, I will just leave you with these horrifying images that may haunt you for a few nights. I'm sorry about that, but try not to be too disturbed by the facial expressions this guy starts to pull as I paint in his features. But I shall leave you to enjoy that. And there we have it, one mini Bob Ross completed. Like I said before, it's not perfect, he's a bit lumpy, he's a bit cracked, but you know, I made him and that's good enough for me. It was never about the end result, it was about the process, and I enjoyed it. And the eagle-eyed amongst you might have noticed that the little canvas he's painting on is blank at the moment. It's got no painting on it. But I will be rectifying that. But that's going to be the subject of my next video, where I will be painting a little miniature Bob Ross painting using Bob Ross's techniques, and I think that will be a fitting accompaniment to my little sculpture here. So if you want to see that, make sure that you are subscribed and ring that bell, ding that bell, whatever the YouTubers say. Make sure that you're notified next time I upload a video. But for me, that's all I've got time for. So until next time. Cheerio.